Welcome back. Right, so we're now getting ready for our last two sessions. These are actually very interesting sessions. By the way, remember I talked about the technology gods? Okay, well, keep your fingers crossed this time as well, or whatever you do to get the technology gods on our side. We're doing a Skype cross with Melissa in LA. So on the last panel, we're going to have the Skype technology, so think positive thoughts about Skype. But before that, we're going to do, is tech a bridge to self-distribution? So that's the panel we're doing now, and I'm going to sit down. Let me introduce who we've got on stage here. On the far side, we have Stephen Follows. Stephen Follows is creative director, Catsnake Film. He's based out of London. Stephen's interesting because he does a blog on data, but he also runs a production company which does a lot of work with brands and does most of your distribution on the internet, I think.
Yeah.
Entirely. All right, so that's Stephen. Next to him in the middle, we have Sam Toles. Sam Toles has just gotten a new title, actually. He's gotten a promotion. Congratulations, Sam.
Thank you.
He is now head of content.
And distribution.
And distribution. Head of content and distribution for Vimeo. Now, how many people know Vimeo? You must have seen Vimeo, yes? So that's a professional online video site, right? Okay, so Sam can tell us all about what Vimeo is up to. And then, last but not least, we have Henrik Pabst. He is managing director of Red Arrow International, which obviously is a German company, but has offices all over the world now. What did you tell me? Of seven?
Yeah, we are now a group of 15 companies and eight
offices.
countries?
Yeah. Okay, heavens. So 15 companies, so a lot of independent production, but you're really in charge of the whole distribution side of things.
Yeah, the distribution.
Okay, which is good because that's what
spider in the game.
Right. So that's what this panel is about. So what we're talking about is, this morning we talked about how technology is changing production. Now we're going to talk about how technology is changing distribution. And of course, they're coming closer and closer together, right? Because we have all these different platforms, be it the internet or mobile phones or Facebook, social media, whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot of different platforms out there. So it's really changed the dynamics. So Henrik, let's start with you. In some ways, we could consider you the traditionalist on the panel, in the sense that Red Arrow does a lot of traditional distribution, meaning that you co-finance, you buy rights, you distribute around the world, all the sort of mechanics that have made the television business work for many, many years. But you're also, as a company, embracing some other things. So talk to us a little bit about how you see distribution changing, and how is this affecting how you do your job?
Yeah, yes, I'm a little bit the old school boy. I think it's pretty much fair to say. But distribution itself is not really changing. You always start somewhere with the content, and you look how to best, and sorry to say it, monetize the content. So how do you best monetize it, or how do you best distribute it so that it gets as many eyeballs, which in the end also goes back to monetization. So it ends up. So that landscape is changing with players like Vimeo, or we've seen YouTube and all of that. Clearly, the SVOD players are new opportunities for us.
Like Netflix and Amazon.
On the distribution side, and also on the production side. We've done productions for Netflix globally. We've produced for Amazon globally. Yeah. So that is done.
Remind people of those, because it's important to say Netflix was 2011, wasn't it?
Yeah, we started 2011 with Netflix. It's a
and
show
it was
called
Lilyhammer. Was Lilyhammer?
Yeah, where we saw an opportunity to go in and then brokered the deal out of Sweden into the US, and they picked it up as their original. That was a nice experience to see how they work. So that means, what kind of rights do these people need? Right. And what rights can we retain to still, play our game, right? And then 3 years later, we met the nice people from Amazon, pretty big company.
Pretty big company.
But it was a good experience. And then you discuss with those people, what windows exactly are you asking for when you want us to produce a show for you? And then we produced a show called Bosch for them, which was a 10-part LA cop-based, old school again. Yeah,
I love Bosch, actually.
Yeah,
it's kind of a gritty kind
cool.
of crime drama.
It's very slow, so you can get yourself a beer. You don't miss anything. But, but it's good.
And you co-finance that. You didn't just distribute that.
Yeah, we co-financed the shows, because that brings me to the next stage. 6, 7, 8 years ago, people came to distributors and said, "Oh my God, so good, you're a distributor, can you please take my show?" And now it is me going to the people, to the producers, and saying, oh God, you're such a good producer, can I distribute your show?
Interesting.
So that is changing the picture in my landscape, because we have to come on board. To own IP and to retain rights is the biggest topic for us distributors and producers, because of all of the outlets that exist, because of all of the ways how you can monetize content nowadays. So therefore, a distributor like Red Arrow is constantly discussing with broadcasters around the world, producers around the world, budgets to see, are we coming in with a minimum guarantee, any kind of gap finance, deferred monies that we throw into production and therefore control the distribution. And then as a distributor, you start to run against deficit before you start to earn money. So that's changing the picture, but it's challenging, but it's good and it's fair.
In some ways, having the new players, hasn't that given you more sources for money, or has it just made the picture just more complex?
I think if you're a really good distributor, maybe I will be one day. Then
I'll bet you're pretty good now, Henrik.
Then I think that the amount of opportunities or possibilities will help you to maximize. Sure.
Okay. Let's cue up your video. So now this is a format that you did.
Yeah, I didn't know that this was sent. I found it out when we had our discussion.
Okay.
So it's a very, very commercial show. But why it is here, when I was invited to the show, or to this panel, I didn't know what the discussion is about. For me, it felt like, is the old school guy over and is the new school guy there? And can you do everything yourself? And the answer is no. I think you have content which you can distribute yourself clearly without a doubt, and you can distribute it to customers, you can distribute it to business partners yourself. But you need distributors with the power of a distributor, that is including legal, business affairs, marketing, and not to forget market knowledge in each market, and salespeople, trust. And if you don't have that, you are not selling shows, especially when it comes to remake. And when I found out that this clip was sent, it's just a small idea from Denmark that we saw it. Our own company developed it, and we thought it's a good idea, throw some money in. And we sold it within 1 year in 20 territories for local adaptation.
Wow, in 1 year.
And that's then interesting. And that only comes with knowledge transfer. That doesn't come with, here's the video, do it yourself. This comes with a big back catalog on how to do it.
Because you had a Bible, and you told them how to do the
knowledge
format.
Transfer, all of that. And I think that's just to show we are old school, but not too old school.
Okay, so do you want to show the clip now?
We can look at the clip,
clip.
It's 2 minutes.
So Married at First Sight.
Quite commercial.
Married at First Sight. The most watched relationship format on the planet.
You get married to a complete stranger? Who does that?
An extraordinary social experiment
Someone order a husband?
that has redefined a genre and become a global success story that smashes ratings in every country it hits.
Crazy exciting, but sitting alongside that is all the nervousness that, am I doing the right thing?
Singles who have failed to find true love
It's a really good opportunity to meet somebody.
are scientifically matched by experts
They are the most compatible people we've ever seen.
and meet for the first time on their wedding day.
At the altar?
They spend their wedding night together, go on their honeymoon, and settle into married life.
Nothing wrong with me. It's not all about you.
After a month of living together, they must make their decision. Stay married or file for divorce.
I'm sorry, but I'm not in love.
I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to put up with me for a little while longer.
Produced in over 20 territories worldwide, this extraordinary format originated in Denmark and created record ratings for the channel. It went on to become the most watched show in the country and took the world by storm. Now commissioned for a third season in the US, breaking channel records, and with successful spin-offs on air. The most successful show of the year.
This is insane.
And the most watched show on the channel.
I think I'm falling in love with you.
In the UK, hitting 90% above channel average and causing a sensation in the press.
why the hell did you do this?
And its success repeats around the world.
Channel 9's controversial new TV series.
What in the world were you thinking?
Sold to over 80 territories across the world.
Please welcome the bride.
What are you waiting for?
An epic television event. A new way to find love.
If this isn't love, then I'll have it, whatever it is.
A unique TV experience.
Getting married at first sight, it was the best decision I ever made.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, as I said, it's very commercial.
But it made money.
But it made a lot of money.
It made a lot of money.
And
yeah.
it made a lot of money to the creator. Right, the creator is still in a 50 or 60% back-end position on a show like that.
Wow.
And that is good.
That's
you
good
know,
for
it
the
comes
creator.
from a little tiny creative company in Denmark, and it travels well. That only works with people like us. But again, there's a lot of content that sits next to us and needs to be distributed in a different way. So
Let's come back to, because I want to get your thoughts on that as well, because I know that you're involved in that to a certain extent as well with the MCN that you own and things. Sam, let's talk a little bit to you. So Sam Toles from Vimeo. Vimeo is basically professional content on the internet. What's interesting about what Henrik was saying is, epic television event. I mean, this is what a traditional company really does well. Yeah. Where do you fit into this? How does Vimeo fit into this, and how is it changing the conversation about distribution for video?
Well, it's interesting. Vimeo and YouTube are almost identically the same age. We were born within 2 weeks of each other. I think we're a little older than our sibling, our much larger sibling. I think that the concept of video sharing has really transformed the industry. There is an entire generation now who is engaging with content that is created by a whole new generation of creators that are experimenting in a medium that did not exist 10 years ago. And, Vimeo specifically grew from the notion that we wanted to be the place, the home of quality, closer to Henrik's world than say Cats on Pianos. I always like to say that Vimeo is the Bloomingdale's to YouTube's Walmart, and that's not an insult. I mean, Walmart is a much bigger business than Bloomingdale's, and YouTube is a much larger enterprise than Vimeo. But there is a knowledge of the consumer when you go into either of those stores, and in the same way when you go to Vimeo versus YouTube, that you're going to experience something very different. The other key differentiator between the two platforms is that YouTube decided when it made its decision to monetize it, it chose ad-supported monetization, and Vimeo did not. And so what happened was, in addition to having the first HD online video sharing platform, because we did not have interruptive advertising, pop-ups and pre-roll and all the things that come with that, really, the most talented, most professional creators gravitated into our platform. And so we created a business where we sell bandwidth and tools for people to ultimately showcase. I'm sure companies like Red Air, I don't know if you guys use us for the video sharing files when you're sending screeners out. A lot of companies kind of gravitated to Vimeo. This is an easy, high-quality tool to say, hey, channel in New Zealand, take a look at our new show, or hey, Red Arrow, I'm a producer, I want you to see this video. And that was kind of the genesis of the monetization of our business.
And you can also secure it, right? It's not out there for everybody.
That's
in other words,
correct.
if Henrik just wants somebody in Denmark to see something, he just sends it to them.
They can create a password-protected
Exactly.
and highly secure video.
Very different model than YouTube.
When I joined the company 2 years ago, there was the evolution of that was, how can we provide additional value to kind of the core creative community who's using Vimeo's products, and we created a service called Vimeo On Demand, which I call the global iTunes. It basically allows any creator with a piece of content that they feel has value to be able to sell that piece of content to anybody in the world, or limit it to territories 1 or we've now sold video in over 217 countries and territories since the inception of this program. In fact, our first original series, High Maintenance, in the first 24 hours sold in 100 countries. That's incredibly powerful. And allow them to price that video in exactly the way they want. We have content that's sold at 99 cents, and we have content, one piece of content was sold for $10,000 on the platform.
What was it?
What was
it was
that?
An artist, a very
artist.
high-end artist had a piece that she wanted to sell and priced it there.
Who bought it?
Someone by mistake.
But what's interesting about that is, I'll give you an even more interesting example than the $10,000 piece of art. There was a documentary filmmaker who had a real passionate audience, and he was passionate about high altitude running, which is you go up in the mountains and you run like heck, and the air is thin, and I don't know why people would do that, but they do. And he made this incredibly beautiful 36-minute short film about high altitude running. And initially he said, I'm going to sell this film on iTunes. And iTunes said, great, that's a short, that's $1.99. And he said, no, this is something that appeals to a very, very specific audience.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a year of my life to make it. It cost me a lot of money to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth more to those people. And I know where those people are. I'm going to drive my audience into this film. So I'm not going to use iTunes. And happily, he was one of the first people who launched his film on Vimeo On Demand and did 6 figures in revenue selling that short for $15.
Good
right?
for him.
So imagine
really
a short
cool.
filmmaker doing like $100,000 plus selling a short film.
Right.
That's the power of that open distribution platform. And so I was brought on because we opened this tool set to our pro subscribers, and it became a multi-million-dollar business like that. And the powers that be at IAC, who owns Vimeo, said we need to throw gasoline on the fire. We need to make this a bigger business. And so I came in with my background in traditional entertainment to kind of see if I could find a merger of more traditional, high-end, big consumer entertainment, and how we could combine that with this growing organic community of creators who are selling their work. And it's been an incredibly interesting learning experience for me.
How many people use Vimeo now? How many?
We have over 650,000 paying subscribers to our service. 150 million viewers come onto the platform. I'm sorry, 150 million unique viewers come onto the platform every month.
Okay.
And we get over 1 billion video views every month on the platform.
1 billion video views, okay.
Yeah.
Is this the right moment to run your clip?
Sure, why not?
Let's run the Vimeo clip, please. So just before I, sorry, do you want to say something?
No. If what you see there is that what I just said, which is content coming out of festivals, content coming from professional creators, combined with content that comes directly from our organic community, talented filmmakers, talented video creators.
That are going directly to their audience.
That are going directly to their audience.
So before we go to Stephen, just what do you think? Do you think that this is going to replace the kind of distribution that we see now, that let's say what Henrik's doing, or do you think it's an additional line? I mean, in other words, is this something where I think, oh, I'm a filmmaker like the guy High Altitude Runner?
Yeah.
Now, he'd have a hard time maybe going to Henrik and saying, hey, man, sell me to a bunch of TV stations from around the world. Maybe not, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But in other words, do you think this is an alternative distribution or additive or in place of?
I actually think both worlds can live simultaneously together. And I'll tell you the example of our first original series, High Maintenance. This was created on the free Vimeo platform. It was 2 creators in New York, Ben and Katja, who made initially a web short, which they then continued into a web series. They got a lot of attention and built an audience around this. We're able to get interest from traditional networks, but again, these creators were very, very specific and passionate about the content that they were invested in and said, look, we do not want to, they had a potential deal, let's say, with a network, and I'm not going to name the network, but they're like, instead of being a pot delivery guy, could you be a pizza delivery guy? And they're like, no, you totally don't get the whole concept of the show.
So they were trying to, the network was trying to change the
development network process. And so they said, no, we don't want that. And the thing that we offer is not only this organic path upwards, but also when we see traction on the platform, whether it's coming out of the paid Vimeo On Demand service or it's viewership and press attention and other things coming on the free side, we can come in and say, all right, we're gonna level you up. We're gonna invest in your work, which is exactly what we did with High Maintenance.
So you actually co-financed it.
So we went in and financed a second season, which we call a second season of High Maintenance, which was tremendously successful. As I said, High Maintenance sold in over 100 territories in 24 hours, and it was one of the most successful titles that we've ever launched on a transactional paid service. Remember, in order to watch High Maintenance, you'd have to actually buy it, which is pretty cool.
So let me ask you a question. Is High Maintenance now in the position where you now go over to Henrik and you say, here, distribute this to television?
And so that was so HBO, Netflix both wanted in, and Ben and Katja said, look, we'd really like to do something with HBO, and we said, great. We're happy to have our first original series now be on HBO, and so now they're in the traditional world, and we'll go and do that whole thing.
Cool.
And so so you asked the question, are we additive? I think that really is right now, and as we sit in 2015, I think we are more additive than anything. We are empowering creators to monetize their work through non-traditional means, to get on the radar screen of people like HBO and people like Red Arrow, as well as bringing content from those traditional creators to live alongside our kind of organic world, so that they can create an ecosystem that kind of bounces off and powers
Well, you were going to say something, Henrik. Yeah?
No, it's exactly like you say. If somebody is able to drive so much traffic and attention to such a great show, I know the show, that's fantastic, but I think that's sometimes the problem for people if they self-distribute, to get really that power behind it. In this case, it worked well, and then clearly HBO jumps on it, and then it's a question of windowing.
Correct.
So absolutely. I must say, we are happy that these guys exist. But the other way around, it's also an opportunity for us.
Yeah.
Next time I'm in New York, we will sit down, and I will definitely sell him something.
And I will definitely buy something.
You heard it here first.
There. All right.
Do I get a commission? That's what I want to know. All right. Okay, so Stephen, let's get to you. Stephen follows. Now, Catsnake Film. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong, but basically you are trying to help YouTube-type talent get more visibility, but you're working with brands as the funders. I mean, how do you describe your business? Is it kind of ground up using the internet?
So we are a production house. We are a creative agency for online video. So we do work with lots of YouTube creators, but that's not our core business. That's sort of a side thing that we've ended up doing almost by accident. My business partner and I all came from narrative film. So I produced a couple of feature films and a whole load of shorts. He worked on Harry Potter. And so we come to the online video world from narrative film. And there's quite a lot of brand-funded content out there where people come from advertising. And so that journey of creating content for users has been, how do we stick our TV advert online? Why is no one watching it? Why is no one clicking it? We're confused. We spent lots of money. Do they not care?
Yeah.
And we come from the position of, we'd be very grateful if anyone would watch our stuff, but we know you're not going to unless we give you a reason to, so let's give you a story, characters, and an emotional connection. And so we've been very fortunate that we were looking for other people to pay us to make short films at the right time, that people needed ways of getting people's attention. And also our videos have got about 30 million hits, and we do very little seeding, very little like pushing the videos out there. And we do occasionally get at conferences like this, sometimes there's a head of a big creative agency or a big PR agency, and they will come and say, how do you do it? And the answer is really simple, that everyone here knows, but in advertising it's a little harder, which is that we make videos that people want to watch. Why are you not doing that? I don't really understand. It's not rocket science. From the world I come from, independent film, there is 1,000 people that can do this, and probably 500 that can do it better. But this is not rocket science. And
I've always thought that it was a real disconnect between the ad agency, creative agencies who've created 30-second spots for years, and now they're trying to get into what they call native content or native advertising or whatever these buzzwords are, content marketing. And they often are just trying to create an ad just bigger.
Yeah, it's cute.
And it doesn't
really
it doesn't really work very well.
No.
Okay, so you're, because you're coming from this film side, you're creating actual stories. So you can have, let's say, different conversations with brands if you can get them on board.
Yeah.
So talk us through why we're seeing this clip.
So all of our work has to survive online, and we have to not only get people to want to watch it, but they then have to like it and take the action that's needed, but then become an ambassador by sharing it. And so we come from this world where we can get people to do things if we use stories, but it has to be very much the client wanting something to happen, an emotional change usually, more than it is literally buy an extra pair of shoes. So when you asked me earlier on, you said, what do you want me to tell you about this clip? I said, well, nothing. I don't want anyone to know anything about this clip, because the point is our work should survive online without anything else. Although subsequently, Sam said he wanted me to point out that it is a Vimeo staff pick, and it is, so thank you.
Is it?
It is.
So you've started on your service.
We have an amazing team of and this is actually it is a badge of honor in the creative community, and I don't say that for Vimeo, I'm saying it for the creators. We have a team that does not work in the business unit. I like to call my boss the president business, because I work in the business unit. The curation team exists solely to find the best work on Vimeo, and it's a church and state relationship. So if you get a staff pick, I can't influence that whatsoever, and it really is a team of people who really all they do all day long is look at all the greatest content of Vimeo and say this is the best of the best.
Okay, so you start this video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's run the clip, the milk clip. Wonderful.
Sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry.
So what's great about that is it does make an emotional connection. So you said that with your videos, you expect the audience to help viralize them or whatever.
Yeah.
So how does that work? I mean, you don't seed content, which means you don't pay to promote it or whatever. So how does that work?
So it's a mix of storytelling and then social science and psychology that we've been interested in for a while, and probably luckily rather than intelligently, it feeds into what we do. So we know the skeleton, we know the core emotion of why our film will work before we know anything about what it is, with animation, live action, anything, documentary. We know the journey we need to go on, so we need the arc we need it to be, and then we start coming up with ideas that match this brief. So the brainstorming process, half of it doesn't involve any creativity, and then the second half is unlimited creativity because there's at least a brief. And so we have our most successful project's got about 8 million hits, and that project's about 8 minutes long, and which is longer than a lot of films, but it kind of proves the point that there isn't an objective length. There is only a subjective length that matters. But what was interesting was that the idea we came up with didn't work for the charity. So it's for Compassion in World Farming, who want to promote ethical standards of animal welfare for meat. But the original idea involved farmers, and they actually like working with the farmers, and they didn't want to piss them off. But because we knew
move on, go to the distribution, because the idea is great, but I'm talking about the distribution. How did you get it? How do you surface it so people actually see it?
Honestly, I swear to God, this is going to sound flippant. I don't mean it. We stick it on YouTube.
It just works.
So we always have a core audience. So it's, if you just put it on YouTube, it'll do nothing. But because we knew why it would connect with people, they had an audience. So we probably got a couple of thousand views in the first 24 hours because of their audience. But they'll watch anything because that's their audience. That's the choir. You have to preach to them. And what then happened was people then started sharing it. And this one especially created conversations, which enabled more people to see it, more people to share it. And so the long answer to how we get people to share our content is that we write content we know people want to share. It's not so much a trick that we do at the end. It's in the creation of it. It's the half-finished joke. It's the half conversation that makes you want to continue it. And that's how you get involved in it.
So we come back, Henrik, to sort of the beginning, which is if it's good content, people are going to share it. People are going to do it, right? People are going to watch it. People are going to want it. Advertisers are going to advertise against it.
Really what's happening in the marketplace to this point is that everybody, as I said when I talk about my job, when I joined Vimeo, it was really about trying to invest money initially to see what happened. And Collective is one of the clips that is in that reel.
Video Game High School.
Video Game High School comes from Collective. Very interesting windowing model,
it's
by
in
the
our
way.
catalog, actually. I'm setting it on.
It's a terrific film, or terrific series, but it was an interesting model. They had made a couple of series, all of which had been free on YouTube. When they decided to come for the third series, which was the highest budget, again, a fraction of television budget, but super high production quality, what they did was they offered the entire series on Vimeo for $15. So you could buy all 6 episodes right then and there for $15. But every episode was going up on YouTube on a weekly cadence. So if you didn't want to pay, you could wait 6 weeks and you could watch all of it for free. What we saw that was fascinating, again, another learning experience, was we had a huge spike in sales that first release date. And then things started to trail off. And the second week, you would think, okay, now there's 2 episodes for free. Now 1/3 of the show is online and anyone can watch for free. The sales spiked again. Because what happened was that community of interested parties was super, super engaged. And they said, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happened. And somebody who had purchased it said, I've seen what happened. It's amazing. And they're like, okay, I can't wait anymore. I got to do it. And look, Collective, I'm a huge fan of the team out in LA, and we'd love to do more business with them because they are a very forward-thinking production company. Make really, I think you undersell it. The quality of the content for the budgets that they're working on is phenomenal. I mean, check out Video Game High School. It is awesome.
So it's really interesting how this is almost about creating communities, right, Stephen? I mean,
very much so.
And that's really kind of maybe that's the secret sauce of this new distribution. You talk about something to your friends, they say, oh, I want to go buy it. It's about community.
Well, it's about making native content for this platform. So every piece of content needs to have its own, every platform needs to have its own native content. Feature films cost more than television shows, but it's not quite, you watch them on TV, but it's not the same as watching a television show. And we're only now starting to see really what these native formats would be like for online distribution. And I think we're in a position where it's going to be obvious in hindsight. In 10 years, we'll look back and say, well, of course, the missteps that every action you're both taking is, and I guess the stuff we're taking is both brilliant and awful in a Schrodinger way until the future, and then it was definitely one of the two. And I think it's all up in the air, but that's giving small content creators a chance to redefine everything. So if you're a large studio or you have a big library, you can't take a massive risk on all of it, and you're also throwing something out that's working. Whereas when you've got nothing to lose or you're building something natively, you can build what you want. So, for example, we own all the IP on everything we make. And we've kept that even though we've worked with some very large brands.
Moving IP?
No, we own the intellectual property.
Own the IP,
so
okay.
I own
right.
the intellectual property of everything we've created.
Well, that's a
in the
very good
company.
idea, right?
But and the reason is, coming from feature films, coming from being a producer, I know that that's the value, and I don't know where I'm going to need the value.
Right.
But I now know what it is, and it also allows us.
I mean, who knows? Verizon might come knocking on your door.
And if they did, they would probably go to Friends of the Earth, and Friends of the Earth would have to say, you need to talk to Stephen.
Yeah.
And although we'd include everyone in that, so it's future-proofing ourselves in a big way. But then dealing with whatever's coming up, we're doing bits on Facebook video.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll do a lot more of that. We may not be doing video in 10 years. It may be something else, but because it's storytelling and it's adapting to the content.
Right.
The one thing I've heard both of these guys say, and I just have to jump in here because it's an important differentiator. Ownership of IP. Either control of long-term distribution rights or ownership of IP. The one thing Vimeo is really priding itself on, and I hope that we can continue to do this, we are funding, we've announced now 4 original projects, there are several more in the pipeline. If I do a deal with Henrik, or if I do a deal with Independent Creator, wherever that deal comes from, one thing that we want to preserve is that the intellectual property lays with the creator. We don't take ownership of our originals. We let the creators take the path, in the same way that High Maintenance was able to path up. We want to give.
But you must keep some of the IP if you're funding it.
Amazingly, we keep distribution rights
for
our platform for.
Then you may get into a little bit of
for all future content or just the content that you've done, not the HBO series.
We don't take long-term rights positions. I mean, obviously, if you're producing a series, you're going to take you're going to have options on the future series, and we can exercise those options, or we can choose not to exercise those options. But I think I think as I talk to talent agents in Hollywood and whatnot, the concept of rights ownership is because, we've kind of come full circle. When television was first coming into its being, there was an actual legal separation in the United States of, if you're a broadcaster, you can't own rights. That's why Viacom exists. Viacom was the company that was created to have I Love Lucy, which was on CBS, and now those two things are together and whatnot. And then, through the lobbying efforts of big Hollywood companies, the concept of all of that control coming into a single entity like a Viacom became the fad of the 90s and the odds. But as we go into 2015, and as I talk to talent, at the very highest level, they're willing to do shows on digital price tags if they can own it. If they can own that IP, they will, and they can have creative control. Those are becoming super critical points, and it's really fundamentally, I think, a key ingredient to our future success.
Is there any questions from the audience? We can keep talking to people. We have sort of 7 or 8 more minutes. So is there a question about distribution to any of these guys? Anybody thinking of distributing in a different way or financing their project in a different way? No? I'm getting nothing at all here. That we've said everything, right? It's all perfectly clear. Okay. What was I going to ask you? I had one other thing I was going to ask. When you talk about going forward, I mean, do you think that? I mean, it used to be all about reach. It was, and even when YouTube started, it was all about, we could reach all these people simultaneously. Now it seems to be about community. Where do you think we're going next? What's the next distribution bit? How do you think?
Hollywood's after something they can't pirate. So you could pirate.
They can't pirate, right?
Yeah, because it used to be that the way that they would make their money was by preventing you from seeing a film or in a certain format or at all, and you'd eventually pay for it. But they could choose when that was. Now, because the content itself is much easier to pirate, and people have different expectations of the value of content. When you turn on Netflix and there's days, weeks, months of footage. What we've got here is content still available for free, but if you want to be part of the in crowd, if you want to be part of the people that can tweet, oh my God, do you see what happened in episode 3, before episode 3 for free. So it's the same thing that's happening with music, where it's about being a fan, being in the fan club, going to see wearing the t-shirt, going to the concert. You can't pirate that because that's real and experiential.
I would add on to that, it's also, in the music context, is an excellent example. Like you are by paying for that content, you are directly supporting the creator. We had a show called Oscar's Hotel, which came from a YouTube talent that we then funded along with Brian Grazier and Ron Howard's New Form Digital, the series. And the people started pirating it because it was a YouTube creator and they wanted to share it. And the YouTube creator, PJ, came on and did a thing on his YouTube channel saying, please don't steal from me. Like, you are actually taking you are making it impossible for me to ever do anything of this production quality or this value again. And I do believe, if you look at the trends, if you look at the data, piracy is actually on a decline. And what we've seen is, if you give people a legitimate paid option, if you open it up, either through ad-supported model or through a paid model, globally, this is where windowing is challenging, because windowing in international territories and releasing it in the U.S. and then not releasing it in China, China's gone. Like you're
it's a day and day business in the whole of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
If we are not able to sell it the same day,
forget it, right?
Forget it. It's
so
gone.
Do you think that's going to be the way it is?
Fully
Heinrich?
vanished.
Yeah, fully vanished. So in other words,
Fully
the day and date's going to become more and more important, right?
Yeah.
Day and date meaning same day, same date globally. Yeah.
Yeah. 20.
That's where we're going.
Later,
yeah, I've got just a story of some content that I created 6 or 7 years ago. We did a lot of films around free running and parkour when it was first coming out, and we put together a DVD. Was one of the ways we were funding one of our shorts, and we put together a 2-hour double disc DVD for parkour fans. It was hugely popular. It had a lot of the creators of parkour in it, and we had huge sales in the first, relatively huge sales in the first few days, and we were delighted. We were going to do another one. We already had a deal with we were talking to a Tokyo distributor to go and do some stuff out there, and then it went to almost nothing, and we haven't sold one since. And we still catch up with parkour fans, and they love the DVD, and the question I get most commonly when they realize it's us is, why didn't you do any more? And you say, well, you pirated it, didn't you? And they were like, yeah, I did. I was like, well, that's why. And that pissed, at the time, they couldn't understand that, and they thought they were supporting us. And it used to piss me off until I started to see it from their point of view. So from their point of view, these 15-year-old boys that were our core audience could either give us $10, £10, be sent a DVD that will take time to arrive, could get lost, stolen, they can't lend their friend, can get scratched, or instantly, or even, it took a bit of time to download the file, but you could get it, you could share it, you could comment on it, you could screen capture it. The experience that we were offering them was appalling, and it cost money, and also cost money when 15-year-olds don't have credit cards. And so it wasn't so much the money, it was the hassle. And yet what they were doing was free. And so I suddenly forgave them in my mind the second I saw it from their point of view, because they've grown up into this world. It's not like they're not smashing a shop and stealing something.
So what you're saying is you have to think about your audience when you think about how you're charging or monetizing.
And compare that to the way we act now. It's all about our audience, and it's all audience.
Well, I think we've learned a lot in this panel. It sounds like distribution is changing, but in some ways it's staying the same. That we still need the traditional models, but we've got some new models that are fascinating.
I want to buy from both of these guys.
Yeah, you want to buy from both of these.
Both ends
and
of
I'm
the
taking a
spectrum.
commission. All right. Could you please join me in thanking Stephen, Sam, and Henrik?
Thank you.